Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another mini episode of Beers and Bullshit. Once again on these mini episodes, no particular focus, nothing in order. We're just going to go ahead and think of something about 15 minutes before we get on the mic. Usually it's just going to be me, myself, Cole, just because I'm ADHD and like to just jump around and do multiple things at the same time. But thank you for joining me on the second episode here of Beers and Bullshit, the mini. We're going to start it off here today, and I'm going to talk about, vice versa. So essentially, I'm going to cover some good things that everybody really likes in this world, but I'm going to give my take on why they're bad, and then flip it around there, take a couple of things that people really don't like, and kind of explain why I think that they're good, or good in some certain ways. Some of these might get controversial. You might not like it, but hey, here we go. Starting off with number one, I got ranch dressing. Now, being from the Midwest myself, everybody here is infatuated with ranch dressing. They bathe in it, they sleep in it, they literally eat every single goddamn thing with ranch dressing. And it drives me crazy. Now, I do not naturally like ranch, so that is the first part where I am 100% biased on this. I don't like ranch. I don't get everybody's appeal to it. I think it's sour and buttermilky and just weird. It makes some good sauces, don't get me wrong. You can make a good chipotle ranch or barbecue ranch, but ranch by itself, I mean, people eat everything from carrots to pizza rolls to they dip their pizza in it. I mean, I've seen people do the dumbest things with ranch dressing. But I think what bothers me the most is just how much of it that they actually eat. Working in the service industry and bartending for years, I would sit there and just bring out just thousands of calories of ranch alone to tables. I mean, I was working at a steakhouse and I bring out enough ranch so someone could eat an entire 20-ounce steak with it. It's absolutely crazy. So, and it's not at all good for you. It's not healthy for you. Like, ranch is definitely killing people out there, just letting you know this. So, your disgusting little sour white sauce with a bunch of black peppers in it, it sucks. It's bad. It's terrible. And you have bad taste for having it. Talk to anybody with a little bit of culture or a little bit of, like a little bit of a food profile, a palate for taste. And ranch dressing is straight garbage. Stay basic, whatever. Fuck ranch dressing. Next on, I'm going to list off number 2 on good things that are bad is going to be lifted trucks. Now, your opinion on this might vary, but I feel like being very Midwest-centric, a lot of people around here really like the lifted old diesel trucks. I should know that because, well, almost everybody in my family does. But here's the deal. Your truck, just because it can run a little bit longer than most vehicles, does not mean it is super valued. Working as a car salesman, I absolutely hate working with diesels. Not so much of the cars or trucks themselves, but more so just some of the people you encounter, because of the overinflated sense of just what the truck has. Just because the truck sits 3 inches higher up off the ground and has, some certain thing that makes your, cloud of black smoke go up in the air and make sure that the environment doesn't last a little bit longer. Yeah, fun, cool. Continue on with a big old lifted truck. The problem is when you jump out of that truck, you're still 5'8" and $160 and you're still an asshole. Whatever though, keep your trucks. Moving on to number 3. Everybody's going to hate me for this one, but good things that are bad. Michael Jordan. Now, here is my thing. I am not saying that Michael Jordan's a bad basketball player. May not be, the smartest person ever, but I'm not ignorant. Michael Jordan is definitely one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Hell, I'd probably rank him number 2. But he's not this up on the mountain, 50 feet between him and the next person GOAT that you guys think he is. The man's 1-9 in playoff series without Scottie Pippen, and he never advanced past the first round without him. He always needed a Robin to be his Batman. There was no Batman by himself. I'm going to bring up a gentleman a little bit later. I think you know him, of LeBron James, and I'm going to explain why I truly believe that LeBron is a better player than Michael. But there's a bunch of old heads back in the day that sit here and they say, well, LeBron never had to go against the bad boy Pistons and wasn't getting fucking clothesline. I'm like, LeBron didn't have to. LeBron didn't have to play in the area where there was less rules. LeBron didn't have to play in the era where there, you had teams attacking you. So Jordan did. Okay, I commend Jordan for that. Once again, like I said, second greatest basketball player of all time. Watching this man play is absolutely out of this world. But he is not on this pinnacle of the mountain that everybody thinks that he is. Other players I definitely put in that same conversation, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson. Michael Jordan is not this GOAT of GOATs that everybody thinks that he is. Basketball is a much more complex when you talk about the number 1. And even the man that I mentioned, LeBron, still, there's a very good argument that he's not. Just saying, it's not just so cut and dry that 23 is the best in that sport. You can talk about it in Wayne Gretzky. You can maybe talk about it in Tiger Woods almost even, and some old heads would probably bring it back an argument to talk about Jack Nicklaus or some legends of the past. But the debate is much muddier, just like it is in quarterbacks in football with Michael Jordan. That's all I'm saying there. All right, next one on good things that are bad, number 4. Clean baseball or the modern era of baseball. Now, everybody's going to hate me for saying this. How can you say that steroids make anything better? It's a cheating way to get ahead in the game. It's not fair to anybody else who doesn't want to sabotage their body and their livelihoods. I get it, 100%. But you can't deny that the facts that baseball was definitely much better in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when the steroid era was going on. We can all kind of remember, I remember one of my earliest memories is watching the Sammy Sosa-Mark McGwire home run battle. Guess what that was fueled by? Steroids. Barry Bonds does not go from 180, 200-pound, speedy outfielder hitting 40-40s. Sure, the man had natural power, to absolutely busting open the home run record and breaking the home run, the single season home run record well into his 30s. And then as well, beating Hank Aaron for the home run crown. How does that happen, ladies and gentlemen? Well, steroids. And I'm not giving their accomplishments credence. They should definitely have an asterisk by them. But I think anybody who watched baseball back then could probably tell you it was a much more fun sport to watch. You had all these juiced up guys pretty much running 4.40s out there. Jose Canseco about to pop out of his uniform, 6'5", 240 pounds, could still steal bases, climb a wall, rob a home run. The only man naturally that you saw do it in the sport was Bo Jackson at that point. But everybody else had just this extreme athleticism in a sport that doesn't really thrive off of extreme athleticism like I would argue that football or basketball does. So once again, much better for the players, and I think you should regulate it, but at the same time, everybody looks at the steroid era like it was so bad, when in all reality, it was the most popular that baseball will ever be again, and it's pretty much been downhill for the sport since then. Argue with me if you want, the numbers prove otherwise. Next, good things that are actually bad, almost every single founding father that you know about. So, the founding fathers, fantastic for this country. Great men, they stood up against a time of tyranny and oppression to give us what we needed the most. Taxation without representation being wrong. We needed representation in the government. Well, white landowning men needed representation in the government, actually. Pretty much you can go down the list of the founding fathers and almost every single one of them owned slaves. So just go ahead and check a box of bad person right there because, well, don't care how normal it was at the time. Still owned another human being there, bud. People like Thomas Jefferson, arguably and allegedly, even had unconsensual sex, which we know is rape, with their slaves and fathered many children. As well as that, you look at people like Alexander Hamilton, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and many of the other founding fathers who were consistent adulterers in their time of power. And sure, you can look back at them as men of nobility and civility, but in all actuality, they're much closer to modern-day politicians than you and I would like to admit. Sure, I commend them for their historic achievements and everything that they covered over the years. I mean, really, it's the greatest upset of all time. It is the ultimate underdog story, besides David versus Goliath. You have the small 13 colonies just out west of the big old bad England, who at the time was pretty much running the world. And who won? We did. On our home territory, sure, but it was still the greatest underdog victory of all time. That doesn't mean that the waters in the middle were muddied a little bit. America's most hated person, Benedict Arnold, at the end of the day only switched sides because he had just been righteously just dicked time and time and time over again, passed up for promotions, not given the due credit, and consistently just mistreated by his other officers. Not saying I, support the turncoat, and goddamn him because he chose the wrong side, USA, but still, at the end of the day, we can't look back at people and just realize, hey, they were kind of bad people. Or, well, we should look back at them and realize, hey, they were bad people. We can take the good that they did, but also take the bad, because there's a lot of 50-50 in everything. And finally, last on the list of good things that are bad, probably your mom. Why? Because your mom definitely broke someone's heart. She's a nice, sweet lady now. Her cookies taste like magic and sunshine. She makes you feel better at the end of the day whenever you're feeling like shit about yourself. But your mom has definitely broken up with someone before. She definitely broke someone's heart. And if she's that awesome, she's definitely the one who got away. So to somebody on this planet, your mom's probably bad. But to you, she's good. To the rest of us, she's good. So there's that. Just a nice little one to end the list off there. We're going to go ahead and flip the script over. And things that most people think that are bad that are actually good. And I'm going to start right away with the gentleman I was talking about, LeBron James. You take a man who has been in the spotlight since he was 14, 15 years old. He has to get drafted to an absolute wasteland of talent where the owner is an egotistical dick stick who can't get out of his own way, who's just jealous because apparently everybody else on the team is over 6 foot tall and has a height complex about him. Dan Gilbert's pretty much just as bad as we found out Jerry Crouch was this last summer. Krause, sorry, the Bulls GM from the late 80s, the one who broke up, the aforementioned Michael Jordan team. But still, you take LeBron, you toil him away in Cleveland, which, dear God, the only worst city you could be stuck in is Detroit or Oakland at the end of the day. And so, yeah, you know what? He toiled out there for a good, strong, about 7 years, leading Cavs teams with marquee players like injury-ridden Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Drew Gooden, and Larry Hughes, and Daniel Gibson as far as key playmakers for these Cavalier teams. If you don't recognize those names, I don't blame you. I had a hard time bringing them up off the back of my head, and I was only thinking of it for probably the previous 10 minutes of what Cavaliers teammates can I actually bring up from LeBron's first time. Then, everybody wants to destroy the man because he goes down to South Beach and wants to learn how to win from one of the greatest of all time, and Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. On top of that, you get to team with one of your best friends in Dwayne Wade, get the perfect third wheel in Chris Bosh, you'd even bring Ray Allen down there and win him a ring. Sure, you didn't go with the not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6 nonsense, but who actually believed in that anyways? Extremely biased here as a Miami Heat fan, and I was really salty with LeBron afterwards. But the man goes back to Cleveland, fulfills his promise, wins them a title, and then jumps on over to the Los Angeles Lakers in order to start his own legacy for once in his entire life. He was obligated to play in Cleveland. Are you kidding me? The kid from Akron, Ohio, you set his story up from the start. He couldn't have left if he wanted to. And guess what? He did. And you crucified for him. You crucified him for it. The entire nation absolutely shit on LeBron James. They burned jerseys. They were taking posters down in Cleveland, booing him at every single game. It didn't even matter if you were a Cavaliers fan or not. Hell, the year before, you probably rooted against him. But you felt bad for Dan Gilbert. You felt bad for the Cavaliers. But the past 10 years has probably shown us that the Cavaliers is one of the worst run organizations in sport. And you can't hate LeBron James for going through toiling 11 years between two separate, tenures there and actually winning them a world championship and bringing them to a couple other ones. He made the Cavaliers relevant, and you've seen exactly what's happened every time he's left Cleveland. Shit out, the Cavaliers are one of the worst teams in the league. And if you hate LeBron James, guess what? You really hate Tom Brady. And here's news to you. He's the best quarterback that's ever existed. Period. End of story. I don't care if Peyton Manning put up better numbers in the same amount of games because Brady's played more. I don't care if watching Montana or Marino or Fouts or, Bart Starr, Johnny Unitas, any of these quarterbacks, Joe Namath, just run down the list of who you think is on the great quarterbacks list. How many of them have won 7 Super Bowls with 2 different teams? How many of them have sat there with absolute garbage receiving cores and made it to the AFC Championship game or Super Bowl consistently, year after year after year? Sure, you want to talk about Peyton Manning. Let's talk about the fact he either had Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, or Demaryius Thomas, all pro receivers, throughout his entire career, starting with his rookie year and going up through his tenure with the Broncos. As well as talk about different Brandon Stokley's in the slot, Reggie Wayne being the second receiver for a long time in Indianapolis, Wes Welker being a slot receiver out there in Denver with also Emmanuel Sanders and Julius Thomas to back him up. It's one of the greatest offenses of all time. So yeah, I respect Peyton Manning, but at the end of the day, Tom Brady is your greatest quarterback of all time. Sure, he's a dick. Sure, he's cheated. Yeah, he has a supermodel wife who makes more money than him, and we're all envious of him for it. But at the end of the day, stats don't matter. The quarterback is the leader of the football team, and how you define a team's success in this sport is wins in the Super Bowl. And he has more than anybody else. End of story. Second, or third, bad things that are good on this list is going to be modern music. Now, I'm even a person that I get up and all upset about the modern trend of music and how more technological it's going, and about how of specific genres, my mind rap, is going towards a different sound that I'm not preferable towards myself. But at the end of the day, it sells. Right now, in the time of media, social media, and the internet, music is probably more popular than it has ever been in existence. It can catch itself from person to person around the globe in speeds that we couldn't even fathom 30, 40 years ago. I'm going to just jump right into it too, that the internet and social media, as all the bad that it does cause in the world, think of all the good that it's caused. High school classmates who would have never connected 30 years ago are now the best of friends even though they live across, the nation from each other. Cousins, moms, dads, uncles, people reunited and connected. And I say the parents part because I'm talking about adoption. People who were adopted 30, 40, 50 years ago finally reaching out and finding their birth parents, or at least finding their family. On top of that, it's made things like Ancestry DNA and 23andMe possible to where we can track down family members. You have the news in an instant at your phone, and whether that's good or bad, in a time where, there's a lot of misinformation going around, at least we can still have the actual reported news instantaneously at our fingertips. There's so much cooler that can go on with the internet and social media, but we choose to focus on the bad part. We choose to focus at the bullying with no faces. We choose to focus on the fake news. We choose to focus on all the things that don't actually matter, when in all reality, we are living in one of the most gorgeous times. Our generation is not a generation of privilege just because they grew up around technology, but they are extremely privileged to have that technology and to be the first generation who's really sought it through in previous times when the television was around for 30, 40, 50 years before any significant advancements. We went from standard definition to high definition to 4K, now to 8K within 15 to 20 years. We are in the highest advancing technological era ever in history. If you hate it, I'm sorry that you're stuck in the past. Progress isn't always good, but progress is always progress at the end of the day and should be appreciated for just that. The advancement of humanity and of civilization. Because the second we stop advancing, we die. Next, to go into it, things that are actually bad, that might be good, I'm going to go ahead and stick with a heavy asterisk and a might on this one and say the COVID-19. Well, it's been horrible for humanity, millions of deaths, society shut down, economies ruined, jobs lost, families destroyed. It's absolutely horrible. The only thing it is good for is the environment. Waters are cleaner, air is easier to breathe. There's cities you couldn't even fly over without seeing smog that are absolutely clear as the day is long. There is one silver lining to this at all, and that's people aren't going out, people aren't wasting, people aren't doing as bad as they used to, and so that is good. For all the terrible that has been within, I'm not saying that it is actually something good here. That's where the huge asterisk comes in. But at the end of the day, we do need to start respecting our environment a little bit more and realize that we are not the only ones on this earth. There's animals, once again, people, or, beings, not people, but beings who are not affected by COVID. They're probably loving it right now. Bet you the deer population is absolutely thrilled that there's not as many people out hunting this year. Good or bad, that's your opinion on it. But once again, I'm just dropping this in to stir the pot a little bit. And finally, last but certainly not least, bad things that are good is both pineapple juice and pineapple on pizza. I don't know why people don't like things that are tart. I know I ranted against ranch dressing, but that's because that's weird and it just goes on everything and you people are just kind of a little basic with it. Pineapple juice, though, is absolutely fantastic. It's great by itself, it's healthy, and it also adds a fantastic little twist to any cocktail or mixed drink that you're trying to do, or even non-alcoholic beverage as well. You can do multiple things with pineapple juice. As well as pineapple going on pizza, there's literally a famous pizza called the Hawaiian that has 3 ingredients. Outside of the basic stuff, there's the cheese, there's the ham or Canadian bacon, and then there's the pineapple. So the fact that we sit here and we talk about pineapple not going on pizza, I'd say pineapple belongs on pizza more than chicken does, in traditional sense. Fight me. I'm not a fan of pineapple on pizza, but I do fight for the right to have pineapple on pizza. As well, ketchup on macaroni and cheese, while disgusting, is also something that I support as well. And as Paul told me about 2 seconds before we got on here, apparently chocolate syrup and Doritos slaps. I don't know how much I trust him, but I'm going to go ahead and back him up all the same. Weird food is weird food, and coming from a lifelong person who has, gotten into certain states of mind and experimented with food one too many times, I can tell you, it's absolutely fantastic. It's all beautiful in the world. So, just to go ahead and flip you on your head a little bit, think about those things, some good things that are bad and some bad things that are good. If you got offended, well, I love you, and just go ahead and come on the podcast and defend me next time. But once again, this is another Beers and Bullshit Mini, and we're out. We're out.